are old triumphs, but also new frontiers, with challenges as great as the state itself, but a belief the best is yet to come. Bringing you the faces, the places, and the spirit of the last frontier. This is Frontiers with Rhonda McBride.
Welcome to Frontiers. Although we've fought against high rates of alcohol and drug addiction in our state for a long time, the search for sobriety remains largely an unexplored frontier, especially for many Alaska Native communities.
Past is present.
This week on Frontiers, we take you to Nome to watch the Rural Providers Conference in action. It's a grassroots Native sobriety movement founded on the principle that the key to recovery is reclaiming culture. Alcohol and drug treatment programs are also important, and Nome doesn't have one. We'll look at the community's efforts to change that. And later in our program, we'll introduce you to Doug and Amy Modig. They've been with this Native sobriety movement from its earliest days and will share their story of hope and recovery. The Rural Providers Conference has its rituals and traditions, and one of those is that it moves to a new community every 2 years. 2 years on the road system, then 2 years in a rural hub accessible only by boat and airplane. So this year and next year, it'll be Nome's turn to put its own stamp on a grassroots movement to help communities bring hope and healing. If this beach could talk, what a story it would tell. Thousands of miners camping here. A city population that swelled to 20,000 at the peak of the gold rush in the early 1900s, with newcomers who brought their hard drinking ways and forced changes that have left scars, some still healing. Can you tell me why you drink so much?
I like it, okay?
This sign says Honolulu is 3,000 miles from here, Moscow more than 4,000, as far out of reach as sobriety is for June.
I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm expecting my 5th one in September. My son said I have to sober up by then. I have to.
But June tells us she doesn't know how to quit.
It's not easy. Too much of a drunk. I'm nothing but a drunk.
He didn't talk down at me. He talked with me.
But there are people here at the Rural Providers Conference who once thought the same thing.
I'll do anything. I'll cheat. I'll do anything to get a can of beer. And I said to myself, if I keep on drinking, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to be gone.
23 years of sobriety. Dorcas says she's glad people never gave up on her. And the same for Rose Atatayak, now 11 years into her recovery.
Never washed up. Didn't know how. Amazingly, I didn't get lice.
Rose grew up in an abusive family. Her husband was violent.
And when he raped me, I didn't know that husbands could rape their wives.
Rose hopes her story will help others.
Anyone that needs help, I'm there for anybody.
9 years ago, we lost our son.
Sharing, reaching out, raising awareness, the mainstay of every Rural Providers Conference. It's up to each host community to provide the setting, to choose the issues and the local experts.
Past is present. What happened to our people back then is still with us today.
One of the themes for this conference, intergenerational trauma and how it's an undercurrent in addiction.
Our people have been, for the past 200-300 years, been self-medicating with alcohol.
They say the road to hell is sometimes paved with good intentions.
It went back to the first missionaries that came to the island and said that our dancing and drumming was evil. We were told not to speak our own language.
Then came epidemics that wiped out entire villages. Alcohol only complicated the grieving process.
A cup of alcohol, they were buying it with a pelt, a fox pelt, just for that one cup of alcohol.
Many here believe healing can come faster once there's an understanding of the root cause of the disease.
It's a dark spot in our history, and it's something that we always need to be mindful of, just like segregation and slavery in the South and the Holocaust in Germany.
Today, Nome is a community that prides itself on its cultural diversity. Still, on the subject of racism,
it's not something that's very easy to discuss. It's not, something that you want to necessarily discuss at a dinner party, for example. It's tough topics.
While alcohol is an old enemy, there are new threats. Brian Machinsky is from the Southwest Alaska community of Bethel, where heroin addiction is a growing problem.
Your community is just looking for somebody to stand up. And soon as one person stands up, you will see the whole community stand up.
Baczynski says one recovering addict is helping to raise community awareness by telling her story.
The shortest distance between two people is a story.
Over the course of the conference, all kinds of stories are shared.
That's the way it was years ago.
One elder was asked about how Shishmaref survived the influenza epidemic.
We had a very strong tribal government, because we knew that once we let sick people in, we'll become sick like them.
At another table, a frank talk about how Native communities sometimes feel disrespected when a new teacher arrives.
It's kind of a clash of two cultures.
One complaint, some teachers don't value Native culture, which keeps the cycle of historical trauma alive.
Our resources are always overlooked. Our community is a resource, our people.
There was also a discussion about how Native children in foster care have a hard time keeping their culture.
Every foster child has their own story.
Marie Ivanoff shared her story about how her mother's chronic alcoholism led to a string of foster parents who didn't care that she was cut off from her culture and family, except for one.
I overheard her telling a man that is my daughter. She didn't say that is my foster daughter, but that is my daughter. And no other foster moms have ever said that about me. And it was very heartwarming. Very, very heartwarming.
The heartbeat of Native communities, family, and culture. The message here, there is strength in numbers, that culture and tradition are one way to heal historical trauma and to protect future generations. Soon, the work begins for next year's conference in Nome, a chance to build on this year's success. Success that was celebrated on the very last night of the conference on the beach, under the light of a full moon. Many of the dancers called this celebration on the beach a historical milestone. The conference has two main sponsors, the Rural Alaska Community Action Program and Coeric, the regional nonprofit for about 20 communities in the Nome area. For web extras on this story, visit the Frontier section of KTVA.com. Up next, we talk with a couple with a long history with the Rural Providers Conference, the vision back then and the vision today to put Alaska Natives in charge of their own healing. A look at how much progress has been made on this frontier.
For more than 60 years, Spenard Builder Supply has helped Alaskans build their backyard barbecues, their curb appeal, their arsenal, and their hideaways. From helping you pick the perfect decking, to mixing paint that's just the right shade, to finding the power tool that pulls it all together, SBS is here to build with you. From ground to roof to everything in between.
Now offering financing with no payments or interest for 12 months. Visit us today at your local Spenard Builder Supply.
The Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium provides comprehensive health services for Alaska Native and American Indian people across our state. In addition to world-class care at the Alaska Native Medical Center, our work delivers health services for rural Alaska. From cutting-edge technology for the best care possible, to modern construction of clean water systems and health clinics, to health training and outreach that honors our culture, our vision is that Alaska Native people are the healthiest people in the world.
We have a story of 27 families that put 18 months of their lives into building a village, a home for themselves and their future. Our Inupiat culture goes back thousands of years, carried by a strong sense of community. Our relationship with our natural surroundings is at the heart of our culture. By investing in future generations through development that is balanced with the love of our land, the Gupi Corporation brings together traditions of the past with visions of the future.
With the new KTVA 11 News live stream, you can stay up to date on Alaska news, sports, and weather every day from anywhere.
In Homer.
In Tanana.
From the capital.
At Denali Base Camp.
From McGrath.
Here at the Port of Anchorage.
In Kodiak.
Here on Prince of Wales Island.
From Barrow.
In North Pole.
And we mean anywhere.
Portland. From Boise.
From Denver. In Washington, D.C.
From Reykjavik, Iceland.
From Afghanistan.
At 35,000 feet above South Dakota.
Try it today at ktva.com/stream.
Those on the front lines of fighting alcohol abuse in Nome have a dream: to build an alcohol treatment center. Although the region has high rates of alcoholism, there's no place within the region to offer care. Many of those attending the Rural Providers Conference are hoping that this gathering will help create momentum. Currently, there are long waiting lists for treatment.
And it breaks my heart. I wish treatment centers were a lot closer to our communities in our region here.
Right now, patients are sent as far away as Ketchikan, Juneau, Anchorage, and Fairbanks for treatment. The Norton Sound Health Corporation is taking the lead on this project. The proposed name, Leetfik Center. Leetfik is a St. Lawrence Island Yupik word meaning a place to get well, a place to come to your senses. The Rural Providers Conference has another long-standing tradition. Every so often, a couple is chosen by consensus to assume the role of stakeholders for a certain period of time. They are the face of the Alaska Sobriety Movement. During that time, they serve as both role models and leaders. And then when a new couple is chosen, they remain part of a growing group of sobriety leaders and help guide the conference year after year. And joining us, Doug and Amy Modig. Doug is a Simpson from Ketchikan. Amy, a Degaton Athabascan, and both have worked in the sobriety movement for decades, stakeholders earlier on in the evolving conference. But I guess first of all, I'd like to talk about how when a community hosts rural providers, how it also gives them an opportunity to get together and perhaps make something happen, become more empowered.
Well, mostly what they do is engage in the process of delivering the training, doing the conference. They do the keynotes, they organize it, and in doing so, they gain experience about how to do rural providers conferences, but more importantly, how to help their own people that are in recovery. And we're not talking about professionals, we're talking about regular, ordinary people, family members, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles that help people in recovery.
The Rural Providers has been active since 1985. This is like the 32nd annual one that we had in Nome. And as our funding has become reduced, we used to have a lot of funds in substance abuse prevention. And now we're kind of forced to turn to the urban centers. So we like to see a group of elders and local leaders and program people be working together to provide this opportunity for the local people to find sobriety.
How has the conference evolved? Has it changed?
Generally speaking, it is pretty much maintained as the format of developing from within, so that every single conference is different based upon the geography of where it's at. So that we have different cultural groups and they have different cultural traditions. Every one by nature is different.
So who comes to the Rural Providers Conference?
Well, things have changed in one regard in that people look at it like trying to learn state-of-the-art of treatment, but we try to maintain a flavor of Native people helping Native people, or learning how to help each other, how to help ourselves.
Why is that important that this not be like AA or some other treatment program?
Well, you know, AA actually does work within a certain context. The formality of it, the undertones of religiosity don't seem to work really well. But the idea that listening heals, not talking heals, but listening heals, and allowing people from within your own community to hear the stories of the people that are in recovery and the struggles that they have. That's what heals. Alcoholics or people in recovery are different than other people. If you didn't have a problem with alcohol, there wouldn't be any problem. But when you do develop an addiction and you are in recovery, you're not the same. You reach a certain point that you change as an individual, you change as a human being, and that difference can't be reversed. So that the conference then uses processes that are based on healing philosophies of our ancestors, and they look different.
You use stories.
Yes.
And I've been to several rural providers, and I've heard your muskox story that you use, and that's one of my favorite stories you tell. And I bet you were pleased to actually be in a community that had muskox in it.
It was fun. So like for example, community, one of the principles is that community development and personal development go hand in hand. And so how do you illustrate a story like that? Well, it happened that I was in a community that had muskox before. And the elders told me that in order to understand the dynamics of a community, you need to illustrate it with a story. So that the way that the story goes is that the infants live in the center, the children live in the next circle, adolescent boys and adolescent girls live in the next circles, aunts and uncles, moms and dads live in the next circle, and then the elders live in the sixth circle, which is in the outside. Well, the seventh circle actually are the predators that attack our villages, so that if you can picture a circle of our elders as being the circle that first helps our community, and that you look at the infants in the middle, they're the ones that need the most protection. And so as our circles are strong, like our elders are strong, which represent our culture, then we're first protected by our culture. But our elders are also the ones to provide the first sacrifice. And so the different predators we have are, of course, alcohol and drugs. But we have some new predators now. So the diseases that come from lifestyle changes, they're all a part of a balanced community. And so the muskox story represents guidance and protection to those that are less able to do so, such as our infants and our children, our adolescent boys and adolescent girls.
There are always predators, that they never go away. How is that helpful in a community trying to come up with a process to constantly be vigilant?
Well, you need to understand that there always will be, and that if you don't understand that, you think that you can do one thing that'll protect them forever and ever, and everything is good forever and ever, and it simply isn't that way. The only constant, they say, is change, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
Amy, how do you think the Rural Providers Conferences help people? You have that long overview.
I think being able to stand up in front of your own people and say, this is what I want, this is what I hope for, that it inspires others to say, I want that too, I want to help. And so we have lots of people who come up to us and say, I got sober in 1987, and back, this is like 28 years ago. It's an opportunity to think bigger thoughts, I think.
Well, one of the things we've noticed about the conference over the years is that it has sort of a family atmosphere, that people like yourself return year after year. And one of the people, I guess, that you recently lost as part of that family of stakeholders, Priscilla Peel. Can you say a few words about Priscilla and her contribution to the conference?
Yeah, I would love to. She first started being involved in the Rural Providers in 1995. She was a planner. And to see her involvement, you know, to start out as a small volunteer, you know, and become such a central part, you know, and so her loss is very, you know, sad for the whole, you know, stakeholder family and for our rural providers, you know, that knew her over all these years.
Well, we have a lot of photographs of rural providers over the years. And of course, we see you and Doug with dark hair and your son, Charlie, who is now 20 years old, just a little baby there. What does that feeling of having been a part of this for so many years do for you and do for others that are part of the conference?
I think it's a habit. I think I've become addicted to Rural Providers Conference. And it's just become a part of my life, but it's part of a longer journey that serving the community as a Native is part of my journey. It's just who I am. And you know, asked by the elders to work with Native sobriety, it's just one of the avenues that we've done. But there is a part that's really kind of critical to this, and that is what it means to be a stakeholder. A person needs commitment and courage to work with people that are in recovery. All kinds of things happen, you know, and when a person is in recovery, what you're dealing with is trying to help them create quality of life, but you're also trying to save their lives. And basically what you're doing is putting your life on the line for them.
Well, Doug and Amy, it was a pleasure to have you here on Frontiers, and we're going to continue our conversation on the web, and people can look forward to learning more about your personal journey to recovery. And I think that's the great thing about rural providers, is hearing these stories of hope. So thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead, healing with plants, a part of Alaska Native culture that has almost been forgotten, but more and more Native healers are turning to that store outside your door. And all of you are getting out during these long days. We'll share viewer snapshots of summer in Alaska.
Let's never forget the cost of freedom or take it for granted. As a veteran, you are entitled to certain benefits when you pass. To learn what benefits are included, ask for our free Veterans Information Kit and learn how a smart plan can provide all of the things that are not covered. We all enjoy the freedom you provide for us, and we thank you for your service. This is Dominic Hassar, owner and operator of the Cremation Society of Alaska. Call us at 277-2777 or visit our website.
Weekends with KTVA 11 News, Saturday and Sunday nights at 5 and 10. Sponsored in part by Spenard Builders Supply, Alaska's choice for building materials and home improvements for more than 60 years. Weekends with KTVA 11 News, Saturday and Sunday nights at 5 and 10. Sponsored in part by Kukik Corporation, creating innovative opportunities for our people's economic growth and cultural heritage.
We're ConocoPhillips. We trace our heritage to Alaska's greatest oil discoveries.
And we're still pioneering.
Developing the first fields in the National Petroleum Reserve Alaska. Expanding existing fields.
And using state-of-the-art technology to produce viscous oil.
Investing billions. Creating hundreds of construction jobs. And producing thousands of barrels of new oil. ConocoPhillips, Alaska's oil and gas company.
Local music is a very important aspect of this town. The fact that Daybreak has been featuring local artists has really made a big impact. Mic check in the morning, giving local musicians opportunity to play original music, it's a really big change. It's a great opportunity to come on and say, well, here's some of our music, so you just get a feel for who we are. And for local bands, that's a big deal to get that promotional time, and we really appreciate it.
One of the most popular workshops at the Rural Providers Conference in Nome was on traditional medicine and wild edible plants.
Horsetail is really good medicine for the bladder.
Raspberry tea made from the leaf of the plant was recommended as a safe tea to drink during pregnancy. Those attending were also invited to nibble on fresh willow leaves and spruce tips, and many of those there say that their mothers used to treat colds and other illnesses with local plants, and were hoping to regain that knowledge.
I remember getting bitten by hornets when I was pregnant, and she used one of the plants, got them wet, chopped them really fine, and put them on my tummy.
Dolly Hawley says her mother's poultice helped to bring down the swelling from the hornets, which attacked her while she was pulling laundry from the clothesline. Summer is here, and we have some of your photos to share. This one comes to us from Brittany Robles, a view of Lupin, the Little Sioux River, and Hatcher Pass Mountains. Thanks, Brittany. Those are just lovely. Well, this photo was snapped along the Seward Highway, just past Indian, where you can see the fireweed in all of its glory. Thanks, Anna Mae Ivy, for sharing that picture-perfect photo. And congratulations to Sable of Galena. Sable was selected by First Lady Michelle Obama as the winner of the Healthy Lunchtime Challenge. Her winning recipe, deliciousness over rice. Boy, that sounds good. And she will join 55 other winners at a state dinner on July 10th at the White House, hosted by the First Lady. Well, if you want to submit a photo, you can do so on the Frontier section of KTVA.com. We'll show them on the air and post them on our website. And you can find all Frontier shows online, along with additional web extras and photo galleries. And we have more from Doug and Amy Modig, their inspiring personal story of recovery. For now, on our weekly conversation, it has come to an end, but no matter where you are, here's hoping that you find your own frontier. We leave you now with the Point Hope dancers performing at the Rural Providers Conference. See you next week.